Joining me next is Anumita Roy Choudhury, Executive Director of Center for Science and Environment, CSE. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. My first question really, can data be manipulated with sprinklers? Will it show a lower reading because of sprinklers being around it?
So, it is very difficult because we have to we have seen, all of us have seen the videos that the water is being sprinkled all around the monitoring station. Now, maybe to some extent, the data can be modified that way because if you're continuously dousing the dust and around certain radius of the monitoring station, maybe that will have some, but then there is nothing in front of us to verify that what exactly is happening. We have only read reports that are saying that this may lead to more erratic reading and so forth. But clearly, what is very important for us to keep in mind that Delhi has really invested hugely in monitoring stations, 40 stations in one city. And now, if we do not get reliable data, and then this kind of efforts are made to somehow modify the reading in the monitoring station, then of course it is really worries us because we know that the data plays a very important role not only in informing policy action but also to inform people about the kind of safeguards they need to take when the pollution levels go up very high. So that's why what we would say that whether it is trying to modify the data or eclipsing the data, that for some hours the data just disappears for whatever technical glitches, it is absolutely essential to ensure quality control and quality assurance of the monitoring stations. These are not small investments. I mean, one monitoring station costs us more than 1 crore. When such a huge amount of money has been spent on so many monitoring stations, it is very important for us to ensure that we get credible and reliable data. That is fundamental because data plays a big role. It is not
I
about.
get that, ma'am. Nobody is questioning the fact that we should be getting good data. What I'm trying to understand from you, is there a yes and no answer to whether sprinklers will bring down not the quality of air, but only the reading of AQI?
It can
Is there a yes or no
influence
answer?
the data. It can influence the data, but that will depend on what is the radius that you are sprinkling the water. Whether you're, it's because this is we have not verified it. So we are also going by what is reported, and therefore we have to see that if you are trying to control emissions around the monitoring station, it is likely to have some impact on the data reading. But exactly what, that will have to be verified, and that requires an independent verification.
Got it. Which is why the opposition is saying that let Supreme Court step in and do an independent sort of inquiry on this. But ma'am, the question really is that sprinklers were used as anyways a mechanism to make air quality better, correct? Over the
Yes,
past several
absolutely.
years, we've seen, according to the Supreme Court orders as well, according to GRAP guidelines as well, at a particular point, you see the sprinklers being on the roads. Outside, especially construction places, we see sprinklers being put out as well. It's anyways a mechanism used to make air quality better. What I'm trying to understand is, what is the difference in that sprinkler being put only in the area where air quality is getting monitored?
So, see, I mean, it is usually said that a monitor captures the air quality roughly around 2 kilometer radius around a monitoring station. That is the kind of grid that is applied to a monitoring station. So if you make hugely concerted effort to reduce the hotspot emissions around the monitoring station, it is likely to have an impact on air quality. I mean, that's not a problem. Of course, as you rightly said, that sprinklers are in any case used to reduce the dust. But here you are doing this in a very concentrated way, very close to the monitoring station. But what the city requires is more widespread action targeting all key sources of pollution so that overall air quality of the city can improve. So that's what we have to keep in mind, that you clearly, if there is a dust source around the monitoring station and you are dousing the dust with sprinkler and with water, then the dust impact will reduce. Now, to
Yeah.
what extent it is going to impact the reading in the monitoring monitor, that we have to establish, because there are certain other criteria that are applied to monitoring station, like the monitor will have to be placed at least 6 feet high at a height
Got it.
for the ambient concentration to be captured. So it is an open-ended. We expect it will have some modifier effect on the data, but to what extent and
We don't know yet.
have to be
But you're
verified.
saying, it's a question worth asking.
If the
I'm saying it's a question worth asking. It's a question worth asking answers to.
So this is not an absolute answer. It can have a modifying effect because we have not verified it, but it is commonsensical. If you are trying to control emissions
Got it.
close to the monitoring station, then that is likely to have an impact on the data.
Got it. Ma'am, also help me understand, the pollution monitoring systems in Delhi are also of different kinds. For example, there are some that go up to 500 level of AQI. There are others that go up to 999. Then there is one which has been installed at the US Embassy, which has a very different reading of its own. Every time I hear of somebody who's traveling from abroad, they are not really relying on this. Apple has another, or any of the, even Androids have a different kind of meters. There are so many different numbers here. Which is the most reliable one according to you?
So there are two different systems. So the Indian monitoring system that we have, so there is already a method for estimating AQI. But it is often seen that when the data reaches 999, usually the data does not go above that. Maybe we do not know. CPCB will have to clarify that, whether we are capping the number or we are filtering the number, because often it is said that even though the monitors are capable of monitoring data much higher than 999, but very high level, the data can also become more uncertain. Now, we do not know what CPCB is doing about very high levels of data when you
Got
reach.
it.
Now, the US Embassy and their calculation method of AQI is different from ours, because
How?
the US Embassy AQI calculation is connected, linked to the standards that the US follows. And the standards that US follows are different from the standards that India follows. So, for
Okay.
instance, if our daily standards for PM 2.5 is about 25 microgram per cubic meter, then the US is perhaps, I think, about 15 or so. So they have more stringent standards than ours. And AQI is a relative number. It is in relation to your standards. So our standards are not as stringent as the US standards at this moment. So
Got
therefore,
it.
the AQI number and the categories, hazardous, good, etc., will also vary. So that is the rough, um, you know,
Yep.
the ways
Yeah,
of
it's a tough
explaining.
one. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's bad enough that even if they were to be, manipulated, we are in the very poor category. And then what's even worse on top of that is that what if that data is not
But
true?
I would just
What
say
if,
one point. I'll just make
very quickly,
one.
ma'am, yes.
People don't have to really be so hard pressed on the exact data point. What is very clear for us is that the readings that we are getting, they're exceeding the standards a lot. Okay, and that in itself is very
Sure.
harmful.
Yeah.
So we have to therefore reduce it, and keep in mind that right now in Delhi, levels are going up when the impact of farm fires is less than 2%. So it is all local pollution building up right now, and Diwali is also over. So we have to be more focused on the actual emissions from the source. If we can control that, we will also be able to control the ambient quality of the of air quality.
I think my takeaway from what you've said, ma'am, is this, that it doesn't matter that you're 350 or 500. At the end of the day, you need to be 50. Until the time you're not hitting
Less
that,
than
no
that.
government gets to celebrate or criticize. That's the number that we really need to be chasing. But regardless of that, we need to look into what this number is really, what this manipulation allocation is all about. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us and putting that into perspective.
Thank you.